Have you ever had one of those memories you can't quite pin down? Not the big ones, weddings, funerals, the first time you kissed someone with your eyes open, but the ones that feel like someone whispered them into your mind when you weren't paying attention. You don't remember living them, just having them. Dr. Lena Morris had one of those memories. Just one, but it had teeth. It always came back the same way, quiet like fog on glass, a hallway, dim, long, smelling faintly of old books and lemon polish. She's walking, or maybe being pulled, toward a door. No number, just peeling paint, cold brass handle, and that sound, an echo of her voice, saying her name back to her like it was trying it on for size. Lena. Lena. She'd buried it, like most of us do with things we don't want to believe. But then came Nolan Gray, and everything she'd spent her life building, her marriage, her sanity, her sense of what's real, peeled away like wallpaper in a storm. It started with a file. Standard patient intake, nothing flashy. Nolan Gray, age 42, recovered from Briar Ridge University campus. Exhibiting signs of dissociation, self-harm, and obsessive speech patterns in Latin and symbolic syntax. He had carvings on his skin, lines, spirals, not deep enough to bleed much, but precise, geometrically perfect, and he hadn't spoken a word to anyone in custody. Not a grunt, not a scream, just smiled, they said, and hummed. They assigned him to Dr. Lena Morris, top of her field in psychological trauma, childhood amnesia, and dissociative states. She read the file twice before she noticed something scrawled on the back in faded ink. Tell her not to speak. If she speaks, it listens. At first, she thought it was a joke, a bored orderly, a dramatic resident, but something in her stomach turned cold when she touched the ink. She met Nolan the next morning. He sat perfectly still on the edge of the bed, eyes like wet gravel. He smiled when she entered, not polite, not warm, more like a man remembering something about you that you wished you'd forgotten. She introduced herself, and Nolan whispered, "You came back." Lena paused. "We've met?" He smiled wider. "We were in the hallway." She felt it in her bones. The hallway. Her hallway. The door with no number. The echo. She did not respond. Nolan nodded. "You remember now." For the next 48 hours, Lena did everything by the book. Notes, video logs, controlled interactions. She spoke to colleagues, double-checked her own sleep logs, even questioned her old foster records, just to be sure this wasn't some psychological trick. But every night, her dreams became more vivid. The hallway grew longer, the whispers got louder, and sometimes just before waking, she saw the door swing open. Always just enough to see a sliver of something inside. A shadow, maybe. Her own reflection, but not quite. And the echo. Always the echo. Her fiancé, Alan, started to worry. "You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You've got notebooks full of spirals and Latin phrases. You're talking in your sleep." One night, he played a recording from her bedside. Lena's voice, whispering over and over, "The room is open. The room is open. It wants in." She deleted the file, refused to listen again. The next session with Nolan, she came in prepared. Notes, questions, audio backup. But Nolan beat her to it. "You're different now," he said. "It's closer." "What is?" He tilted his head. "The echo." She stiffened. "I can help you remember," he continued, leaning forward. "But you have to ask the question, the same one you asked before." She didn't ask it. Not that day. Not the next. But the door kept opening. By the end of the week, she'd forgotten her anniversary, misplaced 3 patients' files, found a spiral etched into the mirror in her bathroom. She didn't remember drawing it. Then, Nolan vanished. Security footage went black at 2:17 a.m. When it returned, the room was empty. No alarms, no staff saw a thing. And the only trace left behind was a single phrase, etched into the wall beside the bed in perfect spiraling letters. "You listened. Now it listens back." They launched an internal review, accused Lena of complicity. She was placed on a forced mental health leave, and that's when things got worse. Her home, where everything used to feel grounded, began to feel off. The angles weren't quite right. Shadows in corners seemed to hesitate longer than they should. Reflections in the glass paused after she walked away. One night, she found her office door open. Inside was a photo she didn't recognize, black and white. An old group picture from an orphanage labeled Briar Ridge, 1997. There she was, a child, maybe 10 years old, smiling faintly, and beside her, a boy, Nolan. She turned the photo over. In her handwriting, but she'd never seen it before, was written, "Room 43. We let it in." She went back to her files. No mention of a room 43 in the records. But the facility blueprints, hidden in the archive, showed an unnumbered door at the end of an old hallway in the east wing, a door that had since been bricked over. No explanation. She returned that night, broke into the facility, walked that hallway. The brickwork was newer than the rest, jagged, almost rushed. And at its center, painted in something too dark to be paint, was a spiral. She ran her fingers across it, and she heard her voice, inches from her ear, say, "We remember now." The days after that blurred. People stopped calling. Alan moved out. Her voicemail stopped working. Emails bounced like she'd never existed. Lena dove into records, archives, Reddit threads, anything about Room 43, Briar Ridge, Nolan. She found one hit, an old article from 1998. Fire destroys wing of Briar Ridge Orphanage. 3 dead, 1 missing. The photo showed firefighters in front of blackened brick and smoke. A shape could barely be seen in one window, too blurred to confirm. She zoomed in anyway and saw herself. 10 years old, smiling, through flames. They said the fire started in a sealed room, one that was never listed in the blueprints. Room 43. The article didn't say what caused the fire, just that 3 children perished. The 4th, LM, was never found. She wasn't just a doctor anymore. She was a missing child, or had been, or still was. The night it came for her, Lena was awake, staring into the mirror. Behind her, the hallway grew longer than it had ever been before. She walked it barefoot, slowly. Each step echoed twice, once for her, once for something else. The door waited at the end, open. Inside was Nolan, or what was left of him. His body was a shadow, stretching like smoke, his eyes gone white, his mouth too wide. But the voice that came out was hers. "You let me in," it said. And she remembered everything. The game they'd played as children in Room 43. The dare. The question. What if the echoes aren't copies? What if they're waiting to replace you? They had called out to it. It had answered. And then the fire. She had forgotten. Until now. She ran. But the hallway didn't end. Doors on either side opened, each revealing a different version of herself. Laughing, screaming, begging, and each one whispered, "We remember. We want out." She woke in her bed, but something was wrong. The mirror didn't show her reflection. It showed a hallway, and a door, and behind it, a voice. This time, let us speak. They never found her. The apartment was empty. No signs of struggle. No signs of life. Just a voicemail system full of recordings of her own voice saying, "Do you remember me yet?" Over and over. If you're watching this, you may have heard something. Maybe in a dream. Maybe in a hallway. A door with no number. A whisper you thought was just your own breath. Don't speak. Don't answer. Because the echo room doesn't forget. And if you remember it, it's already listening.